Wolfman Top 40 is box 1300 Chula Vista.
Greetings. Welcome back to your Blue Dreamer broadcast. I'm your humble host as always, Dr. I. Coming through with a very special guest today. I've got Mr. Oscar Paz, a man of many bands, most notably from me, definitely from Impel, and many, many more that will be named. How you doing, good sir?
I'm good, man. Thank you very much for having me. Super excited to be here.
Excellent. Welcome to the Blue Dreamer broadcast, man. First of all, let me start with this since really? Okay. I already have him messing up. Let me start with this. So you guys played a show last night as Impel. Was it a reunion show? Or is it just you guys just picked up on something and you guys played a show? Or
Yeah, no, man, that's a great question. Because it's funny because the reunion vibes are in the air, right? For past several years,
Right.
for so many bands, and
Sure.
there's so many bands that are doing a great job of it and stuff. And for us, I think it was more the fact that the guys in Unbroken, we had toured with Unbroken in '95, and they've been active now for a couple of years as far as kind of doing the reunion stuff, and they are getting ready to head out in November to Europe. And I think they may have been approached by Gilman Street to do a show at Gilman in October. And although this is year 29. Next year would be year 30 for Gilman.
Wow.
They asked us to go ahead and see if we wanted to play the show. And of course, for us, we've always, Impel didn't necessarily break up. It was just time to do other things within our scope.
Yeah.
And so we always, for June and myself, we've always stayed very, very close. And we always knew that if some opportunity presented itself or something, or the right time to get together with friends and stuff, we would consider doing it. Because as you know, we've all been active in other bands and stuff. But yeah, man, they approached us, Rob Moran, who a brother of ours, we love him to death. And he asked us to kind of be a part of it. And so we played the show it was September. I think it was September.
Okay.
I don't remember now the date, but it was last month. And it was awesome. Well, it was kind of funny that there is no talks of the band reuniting or anything like that. I think we have a decent enough catalog that we were able to just kind of do what we're doing. And again, it was just so much fun, man. So we decided to do a show in Chula Vista as well. Yeah. This is where we're from, and this is where the scene that we grew up in. And there was people that couldn't go up there that had been asking, and we thought, what the heck? Let's give it.
Bless them with a little something, a little gift.
Let's bless them with some drop D magic, man.
There you go.
So it was definitely worth it. Yeah, absolutely. So
hell yeah. Yeah, it was cool to see you guys, man. I haven't seen you guys in a long time. So
there was a lot of people I noticed that I didn't get I haven't seen in quite a while and stuff, and so it was really cool. And even seeing Jason Manuel, our guitar player's mom, I haven't seen her since Impel was a band, right? Yeah. So seen his brother, and just so many different people that came out to enjoy the evening. We didn't want to make it a huge ordeal, but it was so cool. It kind of meant the world to me. Yeah. To not only see those folks, but even see some of their families and stuff, man. Yeah. Right? They brought their kids and stuff, which was really, really cool. So.
Yeah, it's cool, to see the generations and I mean, if they're there, obviously their parents have some sort of influence on them yet. Just like me, totally. I have a 5-year-old daughter, and she loves music. She loves to sing. So she's already feeling it. She's
absolutely.
She's already on track to be, like her dad if she wants to, but she does it all on her own, man. She chooses her own
Well,
path,
it's funny. It's funny, man, because and this isn't some awful plug or nothing, but to your point,
Yeah.
I've got 3 kids, 27, 25, and 21, and
Nice.
my 2 sons are 25 and 21, and they've got a band called Pleasure Pill.
Dope.
And obviously, it's the influence. Although we firmly believed that Jonah was born with a beat in his head, because he was. He's been playing music since he was so little.
What do they play? What instrument? What do they do in the band?
Jonah sings in Pleasure Pill, and then Ethan plays rhythm guitar. But Jonah is somewhat the mastermind behind all of it. He writes everything. The guys in the band are really, really cool kids. They're all either 25 or younger, and they're just rad. Love it. But to your point, I remember taking my kids to shows. I remember when they first saw me play.
Yeah.
All that stuff is it's just as important as putting a basketball in their hand or a baseball bat or whatever it may possibly be, and they'll naturally gravitate to what they love. And fortunately for me, my sons love music probably more than I do, even though I do love it, and their influence is pretty huge. But on the flip side, my daughter, I think she was the jock that I never was. She gravitated towards sports, and I loved it. I just didn't have as much. I didn't have as much influence as a kid, outside influence for me to do sports and stuff. And I do love some, but she took a whole different path and excelled, really well. But it was cool. I love seeing, other generations at shows and stuff. It's really awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was super cool. And that spot, the Tender Hooligan was dope. That's cool. I mean, it's pretty brand new. So I thought just even the aesthetic of everything and it was a good time, it was a good time for that to happen, I feel.
Yeah, it's a great little spot. There's so many different places that are starting to pop in Chula again and stuff, and I think that we do need like a real all ages venue per se, whatever. And hopefully across the street the Vogue could do something or whatever. But even them kind of supporting the scene and stuff, it's a cool little place to grab a coffee or grab a beer or buy a record. It's very eclectic in that sense, and just it feels very homely. So we were really thankful that they offered up the spot. We're obviously close friends. Our bass player June, he and Bert still skate.
Oh,
and
nice.
But I've known Bert for many, many years as well, since we were kids back in the skating days. But his girl and a few others own the spot, and he was like, heck yeah, let's do it, man. It's Chula Vista. So it was really fun. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really cool to see, man. Definitely, especially bringing back Chula Vista heads, obviously Jason's brother and me were very close, and so we grew up. Well, I was in that household. I grew up in that household too, and so I saw you guys from a young, high school, and when I was playing music myself, and it was so cool to kind of see you guys again and feel those feels again. I was just like, all right, that's sick. It was really cool. It was super cool. Good times, good vibes. So let me get into this. I always like to start from the top. So when did music become something real for you, become something that you wanted to be involved with? Like what point, what age, what situation, what song, whatever, what got you the itch to scratch, like where did it start for you?
So it's kind of funny, man, because I think for me, I'm going to take it real far back. I know that we've been texting about some stuff, but
Sure.
I knew for me that music was going to be an important part of my life since I was a little kid, man. I mean, I've always, not the greatest singer in the world, but I always gravitated towards singing music. I remember, I think I told you there was a Morris Albert cover song called Feelings. I remember being 3 years old and sitting with a pair of headphones on and listening to my parents playing that song over and over to me because I was asking them to do that, right? I remember being on a trampoline at 4 and 5 years old at my preschool playing air guitar to Kiss. And I just, obviously as a 4-year-old, I couldn't tell you that this is what I'm going to do forever, although my son did, Jonah. That's what said he was destined to do or whatever. But for me, it took a while. I tried to go through the route of some lessons here and there. I took some piano lessons and some drum lessons. Really got into, I remember my first record, I think I was 7 or 8, was like AC/DC Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap or something. My parents would never buy me a Kiss record, although I didn't, and wouldn't do that. And then unfortunately my parents kind of divorced and separated. So it was this tug and pull thing all the time. So I was able to convince my dad, because I think it pissed my mom off, to buy me an AC/DC record. And I just would listen to it over and over, and I'd sing the songs, and I loved it. And then, but I think musically, I finally got the tug to play. Again, I'd gone through, 2 weeks of guitar lessons or 2 weeks of piano and 6 weeks of drums and stuff, and nothing ever really stuck. The concept of structure and paying attention and going through the lesson didn't outweigh. It was just too much, right, for me. I didn't want to do it and stuff like that. Right. So then finally, I like most kids in hardcore, skateboarding and everything was a huge component. But probably around 8th or 9th grade, when my friend Scott Atwell, and then we ran into this kid Tony Savala from the other side of Chula Vista, whatever, and we wanted to start a band, and I ended up getting some drums, and then I realized this is cool, right? And this is awesome. And then that didn't really fester too well, but then I knew I wanted to play. I knew that the instruments, the whatever it was, whether it was drums or bass, not even guitar at that point, right?
Yeah.
Started kind of calling to me, and I just felt this need to do it. So I'd probably say right around that 9th, 10th grade, I really started feeling the whole, I want to be in a band.
Yeah.
Right? So.
That's cool. Yeah. So you started with drums. How long did you play drums for?
Probably a few months, man. It's funny because now when I look back, I like I mentioned, my mom, kind of broken home type thing, so we didn't have much money. So sure. I remember getting a drum set, and my buddy Scott, he had a guitar and everything. And the drum set that I bought Baruch Kelman's old drum set that he used in Amenity. Like he had an old Ludwig, and he moved up into, I think, a Tama or something. Yeah. So somehow I didn't even know those guys at this point, but I was able to buy that drum set off of him, and it was a ride cymbal, a snare, a floor tom, and a bass drum, right? Yeah. And I think one tom, and didn't last long. And then I think a few months later, somehow I fell in love with the bass. I don't know. I probably should have been a bass player more so than a guitar player, because I just loved the way the instrument felt and stuff, and I ended up trading that kit for a bass guitar and thinking I would play bass with Scott in a different thing, and didn't really fester too quickly either. So, well,
it just makes me think, because your guys' music, I mean, just going off of Impel and, the way you play and the way you guys write your songs. And I was listening last night, and kind of some other questions popped up as I was watching you guys play. And I was like, man, the rhythm is so solid. It's so tight. And so, I know that the drums, I mean, because I'm a rhythmic player as well. When I play guitar, I play rhythm guitar, and that's it. I don't shred. I don't, I never had the want of trying to solo or be glamorous in that way. I just love rhythm. I love steady, heavy rhythm. And so you mentioned the drums, and it's like, I've always wanted to play drums. And I remember seeing the I Love Lucy Christmas special, where little Ricky gets a drum set and he just jams, and I'm like, damn, I wish I could do that. I was like, damn, dude.
I remember that, dude. It's
I was like, bro, and he's playing jazz style, and I'm just like, he's just wailing it. And I was like, and then I started playing guitar, and I was like, okay, that's, but I always have it in the back of my mind that the drums are always, it's just rhythm, it's all rhythm, and
it's funny, man. Cause I know what you feel. And for me, I think going into music in this direction that I did and stuff, obviously I was a product of my environment, right? My wife often tells me sometimes, if my parents were actually married, I probably would be a totally different guy, right? I would have been some baseball player on a high school team or something like that. But I didn't. I ended up falling in love with skateboarding and music. And I'd like to think that probably would still exist, but I always wanted to play drums. I mean, I love the drums. It's funny because Impel practices, half the practice was us doing our songs, and then half the practice was us switching up, and I was playing drums. We're doing cover songs and stuff, and it was kind of funny because I was just always gravitated to the rhythm. As a matter of fact, there's one song on our we re-released recently, Omnidirectional. We added a song that we recorded to go on tour in Europe, and it's called Going for the Throat. and you can hear the bass line and the stuff with it. But the song was written on a floor tom. And that's how it started, like digga 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 dung.
Yeah.
I was sitting behind the kit, and I just started like messing around, and I kind of got that, and then I heard it, and then I kind of told June, hey, start playing this, and we kind of developed it from there and stuff. But I always wanted to have be a drummer in that sense, but then at the same time, ain't gonna lie, man. Like once you kind of get up front, you know, and you're like
you get a taste.
guitarist or a singer, it's like, man, I don't want to be in the back now. I want to be up here. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you kind of want to see where you can see differently and stuff like that. But I always wanted to be a drummer as well, and hopefully at some point too, I've had opportunities, you know, I got to get a drum set and stuff going because I definitely want to exercise that at some point. You know?
Yeah,
so.
I mean, it's fun, man. I love playing drums, and I love watching drums, even though I suck. You know, it's like I you know, when I write my songs, I kind of know how I want the drums to go and where they go, but there's no way I could pull it off myself. I mean, I bought an electronic kit at one point just to kind of self-produce demo stuff, and I think I recorded maybe like 2 or 3 songs myself on drums, and I was like, no. Never again. I was like, I quit. I'm done, dude.
Well,
I'll let somebody else play the drums.
Lucky for me, I had little Joe to help me out, man. Our drummer, Impel, Joe really, when you listen to Impel, I think a lot of it, you know, we tried to add some flavor, some intricacies to the music, but at the end of the day, it was drop D, it was pissed, and it was, you know, hardcore bass and stuff. But Joe was the one that added a lot of the color. I mean, not that Jason wasn't a fantastic guitar player, because the stuff that he brought or the riffs that he wrote were fantastic and stuff, or June's bass lines and stuff, but he really gave us a huge dynamic that we were able to kind of work off of. Not to mention, like, his musical prowess was just immense, right? He was a school musician, which the majority of us really weren't at that point. And then, but I got to tell you, he was a great drum teacher too, because he would get on the guitar. Because where he was a drummer, he'd want to be a guitarist, right? And I think Joe was probably the best guitarist in the band at some point, right? I mean, Jason was pretty amazing, but Joe easy could outshine me when it comes to playing guitar.
Wow!
So we in this whole like switching instruments off, he would show me some stuff, and we would jam, and different people would sing, and it was just a huge kind of rad way, which to me. Not to say that I have chops, but I was able to really hold it down. I think a lot of my, fortunately for me, as far as writing those songs or writing a lot of the songs, I didn't have to think about the beat per se, right? You have a meter in your head is what you're thinking, but Joe was just, he'd show it, we'd all jam, and then the next practice, it was like, oh my God, you know, this is good. So I think it showed me, you know, learning the different instruments that we would all kind of switch around, it kind of gave us different perspective too. And then we were not siloed, right? Hey, I'm the guitar player. I write it. I do it. We were not like that. We were able to let each other have creative influence as much as we could. Not all the time. I think that June wasn't the most open all the time when it comes to writing. He did, but he had other bands and we all kind of knew when we needed to interject or change things up. And for the most part, I think my own chaos, that was part of the problem too, is I'm the guy that's going to write something and change it the next time and stuff like that.
Sure.
But it worked, man. It definitely got us going in the idea of mixing up the instruments or the different sounds and influences really too. Right.
Yeah.
You know, so
what was your first band, you know, up until Impel? What was before that, and then what all culminated to what became, you know, just the branches? So for me, what are the branches of the tree, you know? Like
I definitely am going to say that the roots of myself as a musician, I guess, because I guess at this point in my life, when I look at it, I am a musician, right? I mean, music is my art and stuff like that at this point. And probably further back, but I'm one of these guys that never really thought about it or saw it that way. It just is it's what I did, right?
Sure.
You know? So the first band, the roots of who I am started in this band called Statement. So my buddies Josh Mosh, Dave Kozinski, Rob Bass, who played Rob Osborne, who sang in Force Down, and then Scott Atwell, one of my dearest and closest, oldest friends who had a lot to do with me getting into hardcore, punk, and different types of music. They were in a band with Greg Anderson, and Greg had moved from Seattle. He was in a band called Brotherhood. He'd moved here from Seattle and came here to play in Amenity. And from Amenity, he ended up starting Statement, and he was a singer, and it was freaking awesome. They were like just a quick whirlwind of hardcore that just to me was like the raddest band. Well, Greg decided to move back to Seattle at some point, and so Josh Mosh and I, I went to Bonita High School. Me and Scott went to Bonita. Josh went to Hilltop, him and Dave.
Yeah.
And Rob was out of high school, but Josh had asked me to sing in the band, and I was so terrified, and I was like, oh my God, I finally kind of get a chance, right? I think I was probably 15 or 16 years old at the time. And so, Greg's exit of that band brought me in, and that was where it really started, man. I mean, talking about where it really grabbed me or really it stuck was Statement, 100%. It was very short-lived. I couldn't even tell you off the top of my head how long I was in the band for before we kind of disbanded. But they had a 7-inch and some other songs, and so it was almost kind of ready-made in that sense. And I knew the songs because I loved the music. I loved, I would sing along at shows and stuff like that. But it didn't last too long. And so from Statement, I did some other projects with Josh. I got a chance to play bass. We became very close friends. And so I did some stuff with, it was funny, man. We did a band once, a pretty cool project, because we were all getting so heavily influenced by outside music, right?
Yeah.
At the same time that we were moving from this idea of straight edge and hardcore and adding, I'm going to raise my hand and tell you that I love Van Halen, right? I love Jane's Addiction. A lot of the stuff that was already, you started seeing in other parts of the country. Well, we were feeling it and seeing it too, right? So Josh and I, we started this project with Mark Moreno, who was Radio Wendy and plays now with Swami and the Bed of Nails and stuff. He played in Dirty Sweet. It was me, Mark, and then Ron, who played in Antioch Arrow as a drummer. We had a kind of I don't know, man. It was a culmination of DC meets Jane's Addiction, right? Okay. It was just crazy, and I was playing bass, and it was just awesome. And Josh was going to sing, and
so from adding there, groove, right? I mean, that's kind of
absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think for lack of it's funny how kids kind of equate emo to like My Chemical Romance or something like that. Well, we equate emo to the Revolution Summer from DC, and so bands like Rites of Spring and Embrace and Soulside and those bands were very influential to us. And then adding an element of rock to it, like for instance, Jane's Addiction was a huge band for both Josh and I that I can remember. And then obviously the element of hardcore, right? We wanted to keep that still at the forefront. Go figure. Now I think they call that stuff post-hardcore, right?
Yeah,
so
sure.
But yeah, it was pretty crazy. And then I think after that, I can't think of anything else I had done after that until Impel started. I think I was probably, I don't know, man, maybe 19 or something when Impel started, which was funny because I really didn't start playing guitar until Impel started. I really was playing mostly bass at that point and stuff. And then I started realizing that, when bands were starting or people were, or it kind of was a weird kind of lull. Actually, I ended up guitar teching for quite a while for House of Suffering, and Amenity at that point had broken up, and they'd gone different ways. Baruch, Tim, and Sergio started House of Suffering. And so I kind of latched on. I loved the music. It was great. And then I eventually started kind of guitar teching for Tim, and that was kind of really my focus in that sense, other than going to school or but I started kind of playing really at that point. I think I got my first Les Paul like in 91 or 92, a studio that I put on layaway, and I started tinkering with the guitar. I had an acoustic before, but really it was something I didn't play too often. Really it was, again, more bass centric. And then I think from seeing the House of Suffering guys doing it and feeling more confident about my guitar playing and stuff, Impel started, right? And Impel's gone through a lot of different formations of the band, unfortunately, at the time. Has gone through a lot of formations, different players, different components and stuff. So
yeah. So how were you guys influenced by hardcore and so much? Like, was it just the albums coming out at the time and you guys were picking them up? Where were you getting? How did that influence really get into your skin? You know, like
so it's pretty crazy because the first formation of the band was Tony Savala singing, Pat McKenna on guitar, me on second guitar, June on bass, and a guy named Jason Gray, who we call Mitch, on drums. And it was going to be pretty hardcore based. Is what we wanted to do. We'd been screwing around with a band called Excellent Covers. We were doing straight edge cover songs and stuff like that and whatnot. Yeah. We played a couple of shows with at a coffee shop in Hilltop, kind of a thing, whatever, stuff like that. So, but we wanted to do something real, and the band was actually called Breathe before it was called Impel. Okay. And so McKenna was very hardcore as far as the music that he liked. At the time, I just wanted to play guitar, right? So we kind of started going in that direction. I started writing more riffs and stuff like that. For me, I'm even though the DC sound and New York hardcore, which I'm a huge fan of all that stuff. Yeah. It was kind of more, akin to what Amenity, Force Down, Inside Out, that kind of sound, right? I mean, we loved. I was in love with those bands. Luckily, they were my friends, and I was able to see them a lot. But that was really the direction of that time, is what we wanted the band to go. Did not sound anything like what Impel today, right? Okay. We went through some lineup changes. I actually left the band after like 6 months, and then they were kind of still doing this thing and doing the band. Again, it was called Breathe. I ended up talking to Pat. I said, hey, I would come back, but we'd have to change some things up. And so I came back as the singer, guitar player. June stayed on bass. Pat was the guitarist, and I told him that I had another guy that we could use as a drummer, and that was Little Joe. Nice. And Joe was a baby. Like, he was probably, when we say Little Joe, he was like a little kid. You know what I mean? So then the band started, and again, still kind of focused with the kind of a hardcore sound. It's kind of funny because it started evolving. We went into a almost like a Far Side kind of melodic hardcore sound and stuff, which I don't know how it really went in that direction. I think Pat was drawing so many different influences for himself. He was the primary songwriter at the time. And again, being in love with, I guess, what you would quote unquote call emo, right? As far as that sort of approach to music and feelings and stuff like that. And it was kind of the time. And so we evolved quite a bit, even to the fact that we used to do Careless Whisper as a cover song. Nice. Okay. Which would piss everybody off, because we'd get shows like Chain Reaction with all these, big straight edge bands and stuff. And we'd open up and there'd be like, what's next? The Michael Jackson cover. And it was like,
you're like, maybe.
No, but yeah, like, we want to groove, baby. You know what I mean? Like, absolutely,
That's dope.
But so it kind of went into that direction with Impel. And then unfortunately, we parted ways with Pat. I don't exactly know, as far as like, I don't know if it was a bad thing or a good thing and stuff, but we all kind of went a different direction, and me, June and Joe stayed together. And that's kind of where I picked up, man. I mean, that's when I fell in love with Drop D. I was a huge Soundgarden fan from back in the day, and obviously Black Sabbath and stuff like that. And I was noticing a more heavier sound. Obviously there's bands like Helmet and Quicksand, and those bands were starting to come around with their sound. And I just kind of started experimenting with it a little bit. And I realized, okay, this is the direction that we were going to go. Right. And it stuck, we came up with some fun stuff, and that's kind of when the carousel of like guitar players came through as well. Okay. And until we found Jason Manuel. Right. Nice. So it was good. And then once Jason got into the band, what do they say? The rest is history. Yeah. It's the sound that we pretty much, he really had a huge play in compiling the sound that became what we ended up being for so many years and stuff. A little more aggressive, a little more pissed off. still drop D for life.
Right.
And here it is, so.
Yeah, that's funny because I play in drop C. And
wow.
I learned that from Fluff. I'm a huge, I love Fluff. I love O for life, Rest in peace,
R.I.P.
man.
man. He's such an important figure in San Diego, and he was just such a rad guy. Him and June were pretty close from the skateboarding scene and stuff. And it was funny because I've got this other band now called Hingada, and we were going to do some shows with O's band, Harsh Mellow and stuff. I loved it. It's just to see him develop into these, the songs he was writing. They were just so good and stuff like that. But man, see, that's heavy.
And that's the thing is, I was playing, when I first started, it was like a lot of Nirvana and Kurt Cobain would play in drop, and drop D. And I like Soundgarden, and I just kind of was like, it's a little easier. I can do one finger power chords. Because I was playing and singing at the same time too. I was like, okay, that made it a little simpler. You just a little trim off a little fat and just like a little easier, a little smoother. But then once I get into Fluff, then like I was like, whoa, like, oh, you can go lower? Like, oh shit, okay, you go a whole step and that's it. Like I still have my guitars in drop C, like, so I'm drop C forever, like in the same way, because it just it made it even more beefy, even more, bassy, and and that's what I love.
It's funny, man. Yeah, it's funny because Hingada's in drop C sharp.
Nice.
So we go obviously E flat, and then drop it.
Yeah.
And a lot of it has to do with my my really good friend Steve Miller. Like when we were doing this band called Tap and Die.
Yeah.
And it's funny because so doing Tap and Die, we were E standard, right? And so I'm singing and stuff. I'm like, damn, this is not the E, not the easiest. So we went to E flat.
Yeah.
And he wanted to E flat just to kind of have more of that Van Halen-esque type of sound and stuff like that. Yeah. And for me, again, God, I just felt it was so easier to sing in just a half step lower. It was just easier to do it. So with Hingada, I kind of kept it. Tap and Die was a melodic hardcore band, so there was nothing drop about it. Yeah. But I kept it when we started Hingada, and it's been really, really cool, which is funny because when we started revisiting these Impel songs, it was like, shit, dude, like it's not going to E standard drop D. It was fucking like, I can't hit some weird. Of the notes that I used to hit. Yeah. Obviously I'm older and things like that. I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. I mean, we kept it real, right? We stayed to drop D, regular standard tuning and stuff, but there was moments I'm like, oh my God, can I even catch my breath? Because first off, it was so much faster than anything I've done recently.
Yeah.
And then again, trying to hit some of those notes for that point. But, with drop D for me, it's funny we're talking about drop D because I really do love it.
Yeah.
I just love the thud, like just ringing out a D, the D with a high D underneath it. I always love the feeling of that, right? I mean, it was funny because to me, where I may have lacked the prowess to go out. It's funny because I was a lead guitar player in Kill Holiday. I was forced, I had to force myself to get into being a lead player because like you, I loved playing rhythm and I sang and played in Impel, right? And to me, it was really about that. But I do appreciate lead players. I still am not a good lead player. I need to learn more about playing leads, although I'm in a band now called Crashing Forward where I'm the only guitar player and I'm trying to add more leads to it to force myself to get out of that zone. But and it's an E standard, but I just love the thought of drop D, man. To me, it's like one of the, I don't know, it just is always talk about Nirvana. It's just perfect. I felt like it was, I found my little thing where it just was crazy,
Yeah. And then I love stacking notes, I mean, you're holding down 3 and then just adding more on the on the high end. And it just sounds huge, everything sounds huge. And I'm still writing that kind of stuff. Like that's what I love, it's like you say, you just hit it open, and that's it. It's all tone. It's all beefy, crunchy, and it's the best. That's why I see standard E and I'm just like, what? No way. Like, there's no way. I can't, there's no way.
I gotta tell you, man, starting this band Crashing Forward with my friend Ati, it was during COVID and stuff, and
Yeah.
it's a traditional melodic hardcore band. And other than Statement, I never had really been in a traditional hardcore band. And so more importantly, I never played in a hardcore band. I mean, I sang for Statement for a short period, and that's really what kicked me off. And so I love all that stuff. And it was like, I wanted to challenge myself. So it is different playing an E standard. And it's not always the easiest, but I love the challenge, and I love being able to I kind of feel like I can hear it differently as well too, right? Like I'm hearing different tones and hearing different ways of going about it. I mean, obviously now with where I am at in my life, I'm capable of lucky enough to be able to afford to buy different amps or guitars and stuff. And so I hear it a little bit differently, man, which is really cool. You know what I mean? So
it's funny when I think of standard E, I just think of like folk music or something, like playing acoustic. And it's just like all those open chords, the first chords that I ever learned, I was like, I don't really identify with that.
Well, for me, the thing, the allure, I think, and man, if I could even just be 20% of this guy, to me, I hear Dag Nasty, Brian Baker, right? I hear, Vic DeCara from Inside Out. I hear Mike D from Force Down. I hear Pete from Verbal Assault, or, even, the list goes on with those types of influences and stuff. And so, I guess what I would consider, the most influential people in my life. I mean, obviously, I got fortunate enough to, to hang out with Tim from Amenity, and I hear that too, and so for me, it's like those are tones going back, although I'll never plug into a Randall, I promise you that, but that's not going to ever happen.
That's
but
funny.
But hearing all those, it's like a soothing sound for me, and just an E standard when it comes to hardcore and stuff like that. But
it's just
but
interesting.
Again,
it's interesting, the influences and how they impact our lives. Now we're older, you and I both, and like I told you, in our texting and stuff, like when I was around you guys and started witnessing Impel, I was an outsider, it was like I was doing my own thing all by myself. And then, I met friends and we started a band, and then we met friends in other bands, like how I met Dwayne and, those guys. And then, hanging around with Dwayne at his house, and then you guys were jamming there, and then seeing you guys play live. And I was just like, oh, this is so different, but hearing the way you guys talk and all these bands that you're naming, these influences and all these hardcore bands. And I'm just like, it seems so like alien to me, because I kind of had to like learn for myself in a way. I mean, obviously I'm influenced by the people I'm around, but more so like, I don't know. I still gravitate towards what I like, and I'm very picky. I'm very, very picky, and I've been called snobbish and all this, whatever, but I'm like, that's what I like. And, that's why I still play in Drop C, because the influence of that was just so heavy on me. I was like, I completely identify with this, and it's like, absolutely. I just go all the way in, and that's it, like.
It's crazy, because when I think about my musical influences and how I got so lucky to be part of the whole like CD hardcore scene, right? I wasn't one of the older guys, but I wasn't one of the young. I was a younger guy, but I grew into it, and we saw younger kids coming into the scene and stuff. But one of the things I think that when I look at that, or when I hear you speak about it, a lot of it too was the fact that we had these zines, and we had, when you bought a record, the thank yous on a record was so important, because we want to thank this band, and you're like, oh shit, I'm going to go buy that band. Who's got this tape?
It's a playlist.
But it was literally a playlist. And so not every one of those bands called to me, right? At the end of the day. But a lot of them did. And so, but the thing too, I think that made things, I think the reality as to why I was able to kind of continue to carry the torch of playing and stuff was because the bands were so approachable, people were so easily approachable. And, I'm hanging out with Tim after he just played an Amenity set, right? And these guys are my friends, and we're going skating and, and stuff like that. So I think that really kind of brought a lot of the nervousness, or in a traditional sense, of guys going out or gals going out and starting a band and having to find ways to get into play a bar or whatever. We didn't do that. We created our own way of doing that. And it was a way of like those Fridays and Saturday nights, right, that whether it was a garage or, and lucky enough, like the Shea Cafe with Mike D booking shows and stuff like that. It was it was just so influential and instrumental in our lives, man. It gave us the ability to go out and do.
Yeah.
And again, man, you're talking about a lot of people that probably didn't have a whole lot of musical ability to start with.
Right.
And then we just gravitated towards it. And here we are today. I definitely know that for me, I had to work, I guess, if I wanted to play music. I mean, spent a lot of time at home, playing guitar for hours upon hours. And my life consisted of very finite things that I was doing. And there wasn't a whole lot of time to waste. I really focused hard on it. And, cause it's what I wanted. It's what made me feel good, at the end of the day and stuff, so.
Yeah. That's cool. I just along with the influences and everything. And, Amenity was their Chula Vista, right? It was that.
All day. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if you look at like,
and what generational are they come from you? Like how much older were they than you, or were you guys all peers? Was it a peer group? Like,
no, I mean, it all can't stem from skateboarding, right?
Okay.
We all were friends because of skateboarding, but I mean, like Baruch and Sergio, I think who are some of my dearest friends, right? Baruch was just at my house a couple of minutes ago.
Nice.
I think he's 3 years older than me. Sergio's 3 years.
Okay.
Mike D, I think, was about 3 or 4 years older. And then Tim was a little bit older than that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was all, and at that point, age wasn't an issue, right? Which is funny because in those formative high school years, age really is a difference, right? Like a 17-year-old and a 14-year-old are not going to hang, right? But we did. We had younger kids hanging and stuff like that. And sometimes they got crazy and whatnot, and the scene was a little wild at certain points. But the common bond was straight edge, right? We had, and more than just straight edge, it was like this idea of changing the world, and for us, I think a lot of it had to do with, you had kids that were broken homes and kids that were good homes. But the reality was like, it was the idea that, and Amenity was absolutely the most influential band in my life. They say 3 chords and the truth, right? Well,
nice.
The lyrics and the things that Mike was writing about and saying and challenging us with, it meant everything, right? Like the idea of like ending racism, right? I mean, how does a Latino kid like myself fall into like this middle class white sort of like genre of music? It's because San Diego was like that, man.
Right.
I mean, it started in Chula Vista, but then we started adopting the other San Diego scenes. We found other people like us in Encinitas, in San Diego, and and it just became more San Diego than it really was Chula Vista, right? At the end of the day, you know, so
a communal feel, communal vibes,
I think so. I think that, it was really cool when you started seeing people like me and Josh went to go jam with Mark and Ron, who were not Chula guys. They were from the scene. And that's when you started realizing, hey man, we there's so much similarities. Sure. We probably live in a cooler city than you, but big deal, right? Like it was hardcore. And more importantly, it was kind of this us against the world mentality, right?
Sure.
Like we wanted to change perspective. And, I unfortunately went to a pretty weird high school in the sense that it was very upper middle class. And we were not, right? My mom did everything she could to keep us out of the hood, out of the ghetto and stuff. And
Bonita? Bonita High?
At Bonito,
yeah.
Bonita,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I guess in some ways I was bound to be a statistic at some point in my life. We all are, right? But I could have gone down a different path, and I found my brothers and sisters, man. I found a whole different approach to life. And first it started with skateboarding, and then it got into hardcore. And here it was where we just started finding other ways to channel our dislike of what was around, whether it was the bullshit shit at stuff at high school, or whether it was, Reaganomics, or whether it was whatever the fuck it was, right?
Sure.
I mean, we just, this was our way of doing it. And then again, the scene started kind of growing. And then we were obviously with the adoption of music from other scenes and stuff, it kind of locked you in, man. Like this was a lifestyle versus just being in a band, which, I don't know if I'm still connected to that lifestyle. I guess with probably Crashing Forward, maybe Hingada a bit, but But yeah, it
Well, I mean,
really
the
was
music,
about
the
that.
music is the glue, you know, the music is the conduit.
Absolutely.
It's everything. It's the message, it's the rhythm, it's the feel, it's the pulse, you know, and whatever words you add to music is just your opinion, you know.
Absolutely. And I think the biggest thing too is that it gave us the space to where we could feel safe to express ourselves, right?
Right.
This is who we are, right?
Yeah.
And this is what, and it's funny, I tell my kids, a lot of things that we were screaming and singing about back then, all these years later, it's
Yeah.
gotten, look at, for instance, where vegetarianism is today, right? It's
Yeah.
so much more
Oh
acceptable.
yeah.
You can eat anywhere in the world
Options,
now and
yeah.
stuff. There's options and stuff like that. But I look back and there was so many different, things that we were talking, whether it was the idea of, diversity, inclusion,
Yeah.
ending racism and stuff. Although we're not quite there where we need to be, but I've seen the progression and where it's
Sure.
moving towards. I can tell you that my kids are a directly reflection of that kind of struggle, right? They understand it, and they're different people because of the fact that of the scene I grew up in. I learned so much about myself, but just about other things as well that I needed to make me a better person in some
Yeah.
way. Not that I'm the best version of myself today, but those are always things that you're constantly trying to work on and stuff as well,
Sure.
So, but yeah,
Yeah.
the music was and the music was the release. That was the biggest
Exactly.
thing,
Yeah.
right? Like when you went to the Shake Cafe on a Friday night and Sergio started playing the bass line to Impel, which
Yeah.
that's where we got the name for the band was.
Yeah.
So there was before I forget, there was a band in Europe, in England at the time, that was called Breathe, and it was a very popular band, like a kind of a top 40 type band. So we
Wow.
ended up changing the name to Impel,
Yeah.
which Breathe I think was a cooler name, but Impel was kind of brash and rough at times.
Yeah.
But there's nothing like listening to that bass line, and that's the feeling, the Impel, the definition is to put into motion.
Right.
And that's exactly what that song would do. And that's exactly what I wanted our band to be, right? At least
Yeah.
that's the concept behind it and stuff like that. But on a Friday night when Sergio, he would start the sermon by playing that bass line, and we were
Yeah.
all in. Like we were the ability to express ourselves. And it was fucking gnarly, man. Like there was fucking Nazi skins, and San Diego was very fucking violent. And
Yeah.
it wasn't like it was just this kumbaya in the garage for all the straight edgers to hang out. We were intertwined with all these San Diego boot boys and punks and different people.
Crazy.
And it got fucking crazy, man. Yeah. But again, it was the ability to express ourselves and to kind of let that whole, the shittiness of that week go away because we heard the bass line. It was time to go. It was kind of a fucking religious experience, man,
Yeah.
And again, I think that was where, for myself, musically, I wanted to emulate, right? I wanted to be able to create that sort of release when it came to what we were eventually going to be doing and stuff,
No, that sounds very heavy. That sounds, because and comparing that what you just said, as far as, I was going through similar things kind of in high school, like, we were our own band, and then there was other kids that were kind of emulating the straight edge thing and doing the straight edge hardcore after you guys, and there was no fighting, but there was bickering, and it was just kind of like, who cares? Like, let's just play together. Like, I get, wanting to be cool, and it's kind of an ego thing, and it's like, but I just want to play. Like, that's all I cared about. I just want to play. Like, I played backyard parties and whatever, with straight edge bands. And then I played, I remember playing this big old party off Main Street. It was all cholos, but they loved us.
Yeah.
They're like, dude, you guys are sick, Holmes. I was like, all right, cool. Like, fuck, let's go. I'm down. I don't care. I'll play anywhere. That's right, baby. For real. Like, that's why I say, like, the music is the glue. The music is the pulse. Like, it's not, I don't know. Man, and it's fun, but.
Yeah, at some point, I definitely could say that at some point, we're lucky because from Amenity to House of Suffering, there was a lot, the shows weren't necessarily all straight edge bands playing. It was, you had a reggae band mixed in, you had a rock, you had different, but to your point, I did start seeing more of a traditional, straight edge band 1, straight edge band 2, straight edge band 3, straight edge band 4, all playing together. It was like, okay, like the eclecticness wasn't always there. I think you saw music gaining in popularity, but also becoming different, competitive in some way, I guess, right? I mean, I don't know if I don't know if that's the right word to put it and stuff, but it was tough because that was one of the, you would see Amenity play or House of Suffering play with Daddy Longlegs. It was like, fucking, this is so dope, right? I mean, and I love the fact that it was about, at a certain point, it was, you were thinking you were who you were, but you were part of this musical scene, right? Which, again, you look at San Diego as a whole, there's so many rad, bands and musicians and, from, the list goes on, right? To bands like, well, you understand what I'm saying. They're just, you can really get into the different things. And I think that's what we were all, a lot of us as we were growing older, were wanting to kind of experiment more, from like, Grey Boy All-Stars to, bands like that, to The Locust, right? And those types of bands, to John Reese's bands. Obviously, I can't ever not say Impel without saying how, Drive Like Jehu was such an influence. I think that's what changed. But again, those were guys that came from the punk or hardcore scene, and those guys took Pitchfork and started doing something different, right? And we're just like, all of us are just like, holy shit, like this is just, But again, if we were narrow-minded enough to stick to our straight edge sounds, we would never ever evolve into that and stuff. You know what I mean? So
and it's cool because doing this interview thing, this podcast, I call it a broadcast. I don't even like the term podcast. Like, I've chosen to not use that term because even that's oversaturated. Everything's oversaturated, But I think it's always like that, no matter what generation, no matter what genre, it's, and there's always going to be the ones that hold the music and the message closest to their heart. I feel those are the ones that always rise up to the top. And then there's going to be, it's like throwing the stone in the water and then the ripples kind of go outward, and there's a lot of ripples, and that's fine too. I mean, I would never judge anyone. I try not to be judgmental at all, especially when it comes to music. And doing this, I've interviewed a lot of local bands so far, just young cats. I've had these 20, 1 and under, their drummer was like 16, and I love it. I love picking their brains. I'm like, what's going on, dude? Let me know. Like, I don't get out there. I don't see this shit. Tell me what's going on. I want to know. Like, I'm very interested. And there's a lot of shoegaze happening right now. There's a lot of
there's a lot.
Punk, like neo-punk, like, like Blink and all this. There's a lot of shit going on out there. And I'm just trying to connect with these kids, man. I'm like, come on, let's go, dude. Like, let me know. I want to know,
It's crazy, man, because to your point, we played that Gilman Street show that we played with this band called Luster. And they're fucking awesome. And they've got that shoegaze sound. And it's like, to the point where you listen to that, I think to myself, why would I ever want to do a band like that? Because they do it so good. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, fuck, they're so young guys and they're so fucking good. And it's like, my God, But, it's funny you mentioned that because I remember when Nirvana broke big, right? Because I do remember Nirvana before that, right? Because they played the Shay, they've been around, stuff like that, whatever. I'm sitting in Mitch's house. So Mitch's house was a house in Bonita. Mitch was a kid. He was like 13, 14 years old, and we were older. And Mitch's dad would it's a single man, so he had a girlfriend and stuff. So he'd be gone for weeks at a time, and he would leave our buddy Fritz in charge of Mitch. And we would throw shows at Club Mitch. Club Mitch became pretty famous after there was a Club Del Mar back in the day where Amenity and a lot of the bands, Statement and stuff, would play, but also touring bands and Inside Out, Chain of Strength and stuff. But I remember being up in Mitch's room and I'm stringing a guitar, and all of a sudden it was like the world premiere of the Nirvana video, Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there watching it, and I'm sitting on his bed and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, because I see the girl with the anarchy symbol.
Yeah.
I see the person wearing the Bad Brain shirt. Yeah. And I thought to myself, our fucking lives are going to be different now. Yeah. Because I mean, it's like the true last. Yeah. It's almost like when the Beatles hit, man. It changed everything, right? Yeah. And so you saw, I do believe that to your point, bands like or kids getting into bands and doing so much music, a lot of it had to do with that moment in time.
Sure.
When they broke, it like gave a chance for everybody, because prior to that it was fucking hair metal.
Right.
And who's gonna really go out and try to do, arpeggiated solos at like fucking 1/32 of a time frame or some shit like that, right? So it was different, and I think that you saw this natural, okay, man, I want to do this too, so it just kept steamrolling into a bigger snowball as it's going down the hill, right? And so the cool thing is that it's here today, right? Kids that have so much availability to be able to do music and do it the ways that they want to and stuff like that, which is great. I do love. It was great seeing you last night and all the older heads, but to see young people at an Impel show was kind of cool, because it's like, man, if it sticks, great. If it doesn't, then so be it. It was funny at the Gilman show. I like to talk, as you can tell. And so I was talking in between one of the songs, and I told these kids that, I saw a bunch of kids in the crowd. I said, hey, I was you at some point. I was 13 or 12 or 13 years old at Bob Barley's house, seeing Amenity and Neighborhood Watch. And it grabbed me. And I've been part of this ever since that day. I'm, 51 today. Yeah. So you can do the math, right? How many years I've been falling in love with just being in the scene or being part of hardcore and stuff like that, or a musical sort of sector. But after we played and after the show, I got to meet two kids that was their first show, that Unbroken, Impel, all the bands that played that day. It was their first. So to me, it was like, man, and it's like, what did you think? Oh, we loved it. Good. And I think to myself, that's how fucking dope is that, right? Because I know you like it. Our friends who are there like it because they do like it. But to see that a young kid is getting, think about it, it's like, fuck, this is fucking dope as shit, man. So because I was that kid, so were you. At some point, something grabbed us, right? So
that's why I like seeing these younger cats doing what they're doing, and then when I approach them and I'm like, hey, can I interview? They're like, really? Oh, and it's like, of course, and that's kind of why I do it. Is for me, it's like I'm doing what I've always wanted somebody to do to me, in a way. Anytime I was finished playing a show, I was like, and I'd have kids come up sometimes and just be like, oh, dude, that was sick, your guitar sounds sick. It's like, oh, cool, thanks. Like, cool. Like, are you gonna come to the next show? Like, it's just it's all for the love of music, and the art. It really is art. It is art, and just as you said earlier, I'm still learning to identify myself as an artist, as a true artist. Totally. There's painters, there's digital visual artists, there's graffiti artists, there's all of this, and my choice was through sound, and that's what I play in, I love it.
Yeah. There's nothing better than that. It's funny you were saying something, and I may have lost my train of thought, but when you start looking at what, I remember drawing as a kid. I was actually, I think I was halfway decent, because I was hoping to go into art school and stuff like that. And then I had a fucking high school teacher that ruined it for me and stuff. But again, it led to the angst, and I found a way to channel that through music in some way and stuff like that. And I look back now, it's really, when you're seeing kids now get into the idea that music is their calling and they want to do this, and it's genuine in so many different ways. And it doesn't always last forever, man, right? I've seen a lot of people come and go. You've seen people come and go that play music for a year or two, or they find different things or go different directions. I definitely had a bit of a lull. I had a lull when after we toured Europe. I found out we were having our second child, and then which was Jonah, and Impel kept going for about another year, and we did some shows here and there, maybe. And then I realized it was time. I had two kids and a wife. We just fortunate enough to buy a house. I had a job that I really liked and stuff like that. So I put it on the back burner. It was time to move on. And Joe and June and at that point, again, we had a revolving door. Jason was no longer in the band, but they were ready to do something else. They started a band called the Rhythms of Ep, which last night Bert the guy that was DJing,
Okay.
whose girl owns, he was the MC in that. So it was a live hip hop band, and
nice.
they went into a whole different direction.
Crazy.
With a buddy of ours, Tim Powers, who was the last guitar player in Impel, and they did this Rhythms of Ep, and it was dope, right? And for me, it was time to start raising a family, which luckily I got so lucky to do that and to have the wonderful family that I have today. But yeah, when you look at the other thing you'd mentioned was when you look at kids getting involved and kind of having to do it for themselves and do it for one of the things I guess I'd have to say is that I musically was one thing, right? But then as far as my involvement, but I also did other things in the scene, right? I used to book my wife and I used to book a lot of shows for Impel at times, but for other bands. I mean, we did a lot of stuff at the Soul Kitchen, and in different other little places and stuff like that. But I got into that because you made the comment, and it's the most important comment I think anyone could make. It's somebody did it for me. It's my turn to do it for the scene, right? Mike Down, who recently passed away this year, he did so much for us as far as what Amenity meant and what he did as a person, and others too. Not to forget to mention those other people like Nilo and stuff that were worked with Mike and stuff, or helped do things, or were a driving force.
Yeah.
He booked a lot of shows, and for me, I got to a point where it was like, shit, man, no one's doing it. I think it's time for me to kind of step up, and I did for a little bit. And luckily, my girlfriend at the time, which became my wife, we would dedicate a lot of time to putting shows on. I mean, we were, going out on a Friday night, passing out flyers, going to the record stores on a Saturday, putting the flyers and contacting the bands. And man, this is when you did everything by telephone, right? There was no texting, there was no email at the, or at least to where it was at least that way, but giving back and that, developing the DIY ethic, because that's truly what it was all about. Man.
Yeah.
It was DIY, you know? So
I'm kind of doing that myself right now. In a way. And it's fun. I love it.
It's here to stay. I mean, think about it, man. A kid can go and record themselves today. I mean, that's how Jonah started. Pleasure Pill was recording himself on GarageBand, right? There's so many different ways now you can really do it yourself. Although for me, life isn't about living in a silo, right? Life is all of
connecting,
us, right? I want that connectivity, more so outside of the digital world, meaning like a hug, a handshake, a high five, a what up, man, what's going on, grabbing a drink with someone, hanging out. And I know life is a little bit different, but the idea, though, of being able to do a broadcast on your own, or being able to put out a record on your own, or record a record, or the different things, it's crazy, man. I mean, I think it's fucking rad, actually.
It is.
And when you think about it, I don't want to get into talking gear because we'll be here for like 10 hours.
Oh yeah,
but,
no, I've got that on the list.
Look at what you can do now, man. You can even, you get a bass amp the size of a freaking cracker box and stuff now, and just go and plug in, and you're good to go. So, so much has evolved. Both great, phenomenal, good, but then there's still some things that again, we have a tendency to want to silo ourselves, and I'm not a fan of that, not at all. So I still like to jam, man.
Speaking of gear, so you said your first guitar was a studio, Les Paul Studio?
It was, I think it was a 1991 wine red Les Paul Studio that I bought at Guitar Center for like $400 or something, or whatever it was, and I put it on layaway, and I went for it. And I think I finally got it out after like 7 or 8 months of putting like $25 a month. I've unfortunately, I did after work since I was like 14 years old. So that was part of my whole thing. And whatever time I had left over. But it was I think it was a 91 Les Paul Studio wine red. And it was time to move on from the guitar and stuff. I mean, I sold it to, I think Tim Powers bought it for me, and I asked him recently if he still had it. He said he sold it off as well too. But that was the first one, man.
Yeah, but you always played Les Pauls. That's all you play, right? Every time I saw you, that's all you played. You always playing Les Pauls. So why Les Pauls?
That's a fantastic question. Don't get me wrong. I've owned so many different guitars and stuff because I love guitars. Like the look, it's its own art and its sense, right? Just feeling a guitar and holding it and stuff.
But we do have
I
our
don't know.
favorites. We choose our favorites.
I do, yeah. I think for me it was fucking Ace Frehley, man.
Nice.
I mean, that's when it comes down to it. Like,
Fuck
at the end of the day, it, like, that cherry sunburst always just, Ace Frehley was just so fucking cool, man.
Yeah.
Like, I can't, and so I think for me, obviously looking at it in a playability aesthetic, right? I mean, it fit me well. Even fits me now when I've got, much more weight on me and stuff,
Sure.
but it fit me well. Like, it kind of hung perfectly.
But even in drop tuning, it's massive. It's a massive
It
sound.
is, yeah. And I think, I've played Strats, I played Tellys, which I've got a Telly.
Sure.
I've got, I don't have any Strats anymore, but I've kind of resorted to the fact that I'm a Gibson guy. I just love Gibsons to death.
Yeah.
And so does Brian Baker. So I figured, why not? I love Brian Baker as well. But for me, it just kind of had the versatility too, right? I think that's the biggest thing that I when I was in Kill Holiday, I'm switching from the neck pickup to the bridge pickup,
right?
And I could get different tones right away.
Yep.
It was just so easy as far as I do like the, when you've got that Fender, it's just that straight neck, and I don't mind it to now. I actually like playing them, but back then that little angle change kind of really helped me out. To your point, adding the color that I needed to add, or the simplicity I needed to add when it came to singing and playing an Impel. So Ace Frehley, man. And then obviously I think that the bigger one too is probably Mike D played a Les Pauls and Force Down and stuff, and then as you go further on, John Reese played Les Pauls and Rocket and all the stuff that he was doing. It was just like, man. And then again, it's like, it was just fucking cool. Like,
it's funny because I started playing Les Pauls. I would get Epiphones. My first guitar that I ever got was an Epiphone Les Paul.
Yeah.
And it was because, like, I literally remember my dad taking me to, it was my birthday, and he was like, okay, pick which one you want, and I saw one that looked like one that I'd seen Stone Gossard playing from Pearl Jam.
Yeah.
Live.
Absolutely.
And I was like, I want that one because it's Stone's guitar. And he wasn't even like my favorite guitarist or anything. I just liked the way it looked. And then that's how I created my tone. Like, all my tone came from that. I, changed the pickups and, different things, and then I got into drop C. So I got bigger strings. I was playing 12s at the time. Now I play 12s still. I play 12 to 52s. And it's just,
wow. That I still, so to me, and it's funny, even more so with Crashing Forward, I've never gone up in strings. I just play 10s. I love because I still love the, for lack of a better word, the thinness that it does still give me, and the playability. But I just, as always, I've never, I know a couple of my buddies like Steve has gone up to 11s and stuff like that. And I just never, I don't know if I never wanted to work that hard or what it was.
Exactly.
Thought,
and it's funny because I started playing 12s when I was a teenager. And I even got up to 13s at one point. I was like, okay, this is like rebar. I was like, it's a little too. Okay, so I went back to 12s, and then I went to 11s at a point. But anytime I would play somebody else's guitar and they had 10s or 9s, I'd be like, oh, you're cheating, bro. Like, here, you want to work out, dude? Here you go. Like, play 12s. And, but I'm very heavy-handed. I'm very like... I play like an ape, like that's how I play. Like, I'm just, so I need the bounce back. I fight. I always say I fight with my guitar, dude. Like, and that's how
it's funny because I was Kill Holiday was extremely, I thought, a pretty rad, powerful band and stuff. And I think the thing about Kill Holiday was our live shows rivaled the music, like, in a big way. And, breaking strings and just destroying the guitar and stuff like that. And I loved abusing my guitar. But it's funny because I recently read I was watching an interview with Chris Shiflett, who's the guitarist of the Foo Fighters. And he had mentioned how, I think he was recording or doing something or whatever it was. And one of the guys or producer told him, like, why are you sucking the tone out of your guitar? And because Chris would play so hard and hold the freaking, and I thought to myself, like, and actually over time I've developed less of an abrasive attack, and to that point I do hear different tone from the attack that I would approach and stuff.
Right.
But it was funny when he said that, because I was like, yeah, that's what we fucking did in the 90s, man.
Yeah, exactly.
It was so pissed off. Like,
Yeah.
everyone's just destroying the guitar and, this and that, and there's fucking blood everywhere or whatever. And
yeah.
it was aggression. And I think that, at the end of the day, it was kind of funny that he said that, because I'm like, yeah, that's really something that was a part of what, everyone's watching Kurt Cobain do it, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, shit.
Yeah.
But again, I think a lot of it too was just the type of music that we were playing. It was so angst driven, and so it evoked these emotions. And it's like, either you were going to put your hand through a fucking wall, or you were going to destroy the guitar. And to me, that the guitar was meant to be, I guess, harassed at that point or some shit. I don't know. Maybe not so much now. From that Les Paul, from the 91, I ended up buying a 78 Deluxe a couple of years after that, which is a Tobacco Sunburst. And that became the guitar. And I still play that guitar to this day. I still have it. And
stock, everything's stock?
No, so it was a deluxe. So, and it's funny, Brian Baker in an interview once said that, he used to buy deluxes all the time, and then he'd cut them because he couldn't afford buying a standard. Well, that's why I bought a deluxe, because it was like $500, and I couldn't afford to buy a standard Les Paul standard. It was too expensive.
Yeah.
So I bought it, and then I took out the pickups and I put some Seymour Duncan P90 kind of replicate ones, whatever. And I played that for a while in Kill Holiday, and I loved it. I played that through a high watt I played that through a JMP into my an orange cab. Yeah. But then I wanted a little bit more, so I cut it. And I guess I regret cutting it, but I cut it for full size humbuckers. I put a 59 in the bridge and a jazz in the neck. And I just fucking loved it. And so I recently. Yeah, I left them with open pickups and then recently, about 5 years ago, I put covers on them. I put nickel plated covers on both, and I still love the way the guitar sounds. I use it quite, and the stuff I recorded for Hingada and Crashing Forward, it's the primary guitar still. I do own other guitars that I use, but once I put that nickel plated cover, it was like, oh my God, it still feels like it sings. It's funny because my really close friend, Sal Gallegos, who plays drums in Hingada and stuff, and amongst other bands and stuff, he's in Secret Fun Club, always trying to get me to sell him the guitar. And I tell him, dude,
no,
you got to talk to my wife about that, because I don't know that's ever going to get, I don't know if that leaves the family at this point. You know what I mean? So, but he's a bit of a gearhead, and we always, on the Hingada text, we talk a lot. We don't talk a lot. We send each other stuff what to buy, because we're always buying gear, it seems like, at this point. Yeah. But he always like, hey man, I'll trade you for that deluxe. And I'm like, dude, it's not gonna happen. You know what I mean? So, but
well, it's funny because I moved on to Jazz Masters. I posted, I was selling one of my Les Pauls, and one day on OfferUp, and some dude hit me up. He's like, I've got a Jazz Master. It was a Squire Jazz Master 60s vibe. And I was like, I wasn't really doing much live. I was just kind of recording stuff to myself. And, I was like, yeah, fuck it. I just want to flip my tone completely. And I was playing through a Mesa Boogie triple rectifier, half stack. And I just wanted I wanted something to really just change my tone. Like, I wasn't looking for it, but he hit me up. He's like, I'll trade you straight up. And I said, fuck it, let's go. And ever since then, I bought these 2 Japanese Jazz Masters within the last couple years, and that's it. That's
I
all
love
I
the
use
Japanese
now.
Fenders. The Japanese Fenders are dope. Right?
I think they're the best.
Crafted or made in Japan. Yeah, they're great.
It's funny my blue Japanese Jazz Masters, literally, it's got the roasted maple neck. It's got the matching headstock. It's blue. It's got the matching blue headstock. And it's literally the best guitar I've ever played. This dude that I take it to, his name is David Mead. He does, he'll set it up for me and everything, and I'll just take it to him, just anything going on, any wiring, he needs to change the pots in it, and I'll switch out. Have you heard Dunnable guitars? Are you Dunnable?
Absolutely.
Dunnable. So he makes these Jazz Master pickups they're pretty much humbuckers. So I put one of his in mine. So it's basically like a humbucker. no, like very low noise, no noise practically, and it's literally the perfect guitar. And the guy I take it to like that will fix it and do whatever for me. He's just like, dude, don't do anything to this guitar. This guitar is so dope.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's literally like the perfect guitar I've ever played, and so I
There was
love it.
this guy Randy Johnson. He was one of the opening bands at Gilman. Randy's been around for many, many years, different bands and stuff. He's a really cool dude. He played a Troy Van Leeuwen
Yeah,
jazz
dude,
jazz
I
master.
almost
Yeah,
wanted to get one of I was almost gonna get the
yeah.
Oxblood one. I was
Oh, the
almost
Oxblood
gonna
is
get I
So
was almost gonna
Randy
get
played
that one.
one, and it's funny because I'm not a Fender amp guy, although I do have I have a little 8-inch or 10-inch Fender that I've had since I was 16 that I
Yeah.
actually do some stuff with. It's
Yeah.
my amp that I play at home. But other than that, I'm a big Marshall guy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he played through a Fender, and he just sounded so great. It's funny because Steve Miller and I were talking, and I don't know if I should say it too loud because I don't know if his wife knows, but he bought one too. He bought a Troy Van Leeuwen, the Oxblood, and it's like a cool. I do have a Fender Johnny Marr that I bought because he's Johnny fucking Marr, and I had to have one.
Yeah.
I got one in the Fever Yellow. I'm still not there yet. I do like the way it feels, but I'm not as into the tension in the strings in comparison to my Les Pauls and stuff.
Yeah.
But I do.
They don't have the sustain as much as the Les Pauls,
right?
But dude, the neck on my blue one, I'll send you pictures, but it's almost like the baseball bat. Like it's huge. That's what I wanted. Like I said, I'm like a gorilla when I play, dude. So I want a fat fucking neck.
Yeah.
Oh, dude. And the fact that it's just all brown, like it's roasted to shit. Like, oh, dude. I'm gonna be buried with that guitar.
It's funny, man, because I've been my Les Pauls I have a custom as well, a 78 custom, and they're those 60s thin line kind of necks and stuff like that. And I recently got I did some touring and stuff, and I'm actually gonna be going on the road again in a couple of weeks here.
Nice.
But I bought another Les Paul. I bought a gold top. I always wanted a gold top.
Sure.
And I bought a newer one. Again, Steve and I have. How do I put it? Steve and I have talked so much. We've been friends for so many years, and we talk guitars, and he's such a rad musical head when it comes to knowing about guitars and even just his playing and stuff like that. But we talk and share guitars just like I do with the Hingada guys all the time. And he bought a couple of the newer Les Pauls. He bought a gold top, and he has a cherry sunburst, which I fucking love to death as far as the tone. It's got those burst bucker pickups in it.
Yeah.
But I bought a gold top finally, and it's got the burst buckers, and it's got the 50s profile neck, so it's thicker.
Yeah.
And it's the first time I've ever. I got to tell you, I kind of love it. The 60s stuff. The necks are great, but this thicker neck, I feel like I'm holding it less and playing it more, right? Because I have to.
Yeah.
So it's there. For some reason I feel you on that, even though I don't have the largest of hands, right?
Me neither. Yeah.
It's still fucking great. They feel so good and stuff. And that was the other thing too about the Les Paul is that it was just such a balanced guitar. I got to tell you, I wanted to play because of Ian MacKaye. I'm still searching for that white SG. I've had SGs, but I just could not get into them because. And obviously, Tim Gonzalez played an SG for Nemeti, which I loved as well too. Yeah. But I couldn't get into them because they're so unbalanced for me. And then the fact that the bridge was pushed,
with a skinny little body. Man.
Yeah, and then the bridge is pushed forward so much. I'm not playing it down. I'm playing it like at an angle.
Right.
And for some reason, I just didn't. It didn't. I couldn't. I don't know. I just never. Although they sounded great, and I loved the thinner sounding of the SG. And I'm going to get another. I want one now. Finally, I want a white one so bad, just because I love the way they look. And Ian MacKaye played one in Fugazi and stuff like that. And so I got to have one for whatever reason. And I'm hoping that when I buy it, it calls to me. And it's funny because my father-in-law talked about this. They just all these guitars have different. They got different songs to write, man. Yep. They're all going to give you something different. And I think it's so important to understand that they're their own musical entity, but they need you, right? They need you to tell that song or to play that song. So I probably would have more guitars, but I have a lot of self-control because I also have bills and stuff like that. We all got to pay and whatnot. But I think for me that's the other thing when I look at the mean, let's be honest. Guitars are just fucking cool, man. Ace Frehley was fucking cool. You know, Angus Young was fucking cool. Like, these guys were just so like huge. And then even when you looked into getting into, you know, using the guitar to change things and to do things, it just, I don't know, it's like a perfect piece of art to me in some way.
Yeah.
And I love Les Pauls in that sense too. I just feel
it's
so...
an extension of you, but it's like holding a painting. And you're not painting; you're just representing the painting.
Yeah.
You know,
it's
you're
funny 'cause
strumming it and you're feeling it. You know, but even when it looks cool, you're like, "Fuck, that thing looks so fucking cool." That's it. It's the painting. You know, it's like,
it's funny because like the deluxe that I bought. I don't want to sound all weird or nothing, but it was a 78, so I got it probably closer to 95. So it already had 20 years worth of songs that it had written, man.
Sure.
Right. You know, already had stories it had to tell. I mean, I had cigarette burns on it and stuff. And I remember what the neck looked like, you know, as far as starting to fade and stuff. And then now when I look at the neck now, it's like really fucking faded. Things are, you know, stuff like that. And so it's funny because, you know, I've obviously adopted that and created my own stories and stuff and songs to kind of write from that. But it was always apparent to me, for some reason, I always gravitated toward used because A, that's all I could afford. But B, I love the idea that I was taking on somebody else's. Now it's not, you know, this new Les Paul, I finally got a gold top, so I'm so happy that I got it. But you know, the cool thing too is I was reading an article, and I have to agree with this. They're kind of making new guitars really good. You know, like you don't have to, you know, search for that. You know, you get out. You know, I know myself, probably not as much of a gearhead as Sal and Jay, but you know, it's fuck. I'd love to have a fucking 72 SG, right? But I don't have to have one because I think a lot of what they're making today still sounds so great. And to your point, there's so many people making pickups and configurations and different stuff. And
a lot of the boutique stuff is so crazy, man. It's awesome, you know, but it's also saturated. I was talking to the last guy I had on, and he's very much into pedals, you know, and I'm just like, the boutique pedal market is crazy. He's like, seriously? I'm like, it's so oversaturated.
You'll have to interview, if you can get Jay to talk about it, but you'll have to interview Sal or I mean, even June plays. I don't know if you saw his pedal board last night, but June's got all kinds of pedals for his bass rig and stuff. And Jay had a simpler a pedal board for Impel, but in Hingada, the pedal board is like, holy fuck, dude.
It's an addiction, man. It's an addiction.
Oh, yeah. I think for me, I finally, you know, I always, in both Impel and in Kill Holiday, I always put something in the front, right? Always put some sort of distortion, overdrive, fuzz. Yeah, absolutely, right? And I learned that from obviously watching other guitar players and stuff, but I never got so caught into like all of the modulation and stuff. I mean, I would use a super chorus every once in a while, but now with Crashing Forward as like a lead guitar player, and even actually in Kill Holiday as a lead guitar player, I adapted the super chorus, right? But then I'm starting to kind of understand that I need to add some more stuff here and there, but it's tough because I'm also bare bones kind of simple guy when it comes to it. You know, I still feel like I'm learning my voicing when it comes to solos and stuff and what I want to do. But the tone is, I think for me, I'm always fucking with tone. Jeff Schneider does my amps. He's been doing my amps for years, and Jeff's just a wonderful human being. He's a phenomenal guitar player. He's a phenomenal amp builder. The things that he does with my amps, and he does with a lot of amps for a lot of people, it's just fucking phenomenal, you know? So I do feel like plugging straight in and just fucking getting it from there is just great. But I will tell you, you know, I've got an 800 that I run for Crashing Forward, and you know, I'm putting in an Archer pedal now right at the front end, and this Archer pedal is just fucking dope. I mean, it sounds, I mean, I'm able to just boost it enough to where it just gives me, I can feel the head just driving a little harder, and it sounds so fucking good, man. You know, and then again, I'll put in like I've got I think a Boss reverb, and then I still have my old super chorus that I have that I'll put in front of it every once in a while or something. But really, I try to keep it as bare bones. With Hingada, I'll put more modulation in front of it just because we want to fuck around. I've got a flanger, which is like fucking cool and fun to play with, you know, for the most part. But I still, you know, Sal is Sal is wonderful because he is such a knowledgeable fucking guy to this stuff too. And you know, he's got, I think, what did he get? We wanted to add fuzz to this song on my end because Jay has it. So he gave me this dirty something or other fuzz box. And I was like, okay, yeah. So I put it in and it's like, fuck, this thing is, I would never figure that out. You know, like Sal was like, yeah, dude, put this in front, blah, blah, blah. I was like, holy shit. You know, and it's great to have, I mean, he's a phenomenal drummer. A really good guitar player as well too, but he's also got that like engineering prowess of tone and sound, and you know, him and John in Secret Funk Club are just fucking just so huge when it comes to musical.
He can probably hear it in his head, you know.
Oh yeah, dude. Sal, both Sal and John are just like fuck. They know their shit and their stuff and the things that they try. But I'm lucky because he's my friend and I have him as that library. Right? Like, hey man, I'm thinking, let's say, fucking, let's do this, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I got you.
I got you.
I got you. Just give me your credit card. It's like, shit. You know, all of a sudden it's like, what's showing up now? You know, my wife's like, what's coming in today? You know, shit like that. So
yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, let's get into the music, man. So I always ask the artists I speak to, you know, give me 3 songs that influence you, one from the beginning, one kind of midpoint, and one recently, you know. So first song you picked was Morris Albert, Feelings.
Yeah, I mean, that was 3-year-old me sitting in my parents' living room, and that really started my musical journey, man. I mean, I remember being in that freaking room, and I still have the headphones or these Panasonic cans that you put on your ears. And so it's funny. I got a picture of my daughter that I took of her when she was a baby or younger, and she's got those same headphones on, and I still have them to this day.
Nice.
Although they're so dilapidated and stuff, I don't use them. But and then it's funny because it's a 1/4-inch input for those headphones.
Yeah.
But right now, man, without even having to close my eyes, I can still see myself sitting there with no shirt on, like in just like my diapers or whatever, and just sitting there singing along to that record and not caring. Like I was just so enamored, in love, and in the moment with that song that it didn't matter as a 3-year-old what was going on around. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't listen to what was going around, right? So when I look at that song, you know, I could go on about it, and it would probably fill with tears here or whatever. But it was the start of my musical, like just the journey that I've been on, man. You know, so that's so important in that sense. Yeah.
Here we go. And you said this is a cover version?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, Morris Albert, it was a cover song that he redid and stuff. But I think I sent you the right version. Hopefully I did and stuff now. But
it says Morris Albert. You think this is a cover of the cover?
Oh, it is.
It's not the original. Oh, I think it's an instrumental, no?
Yeah, it is the instrumental, yeah. I think I sent you the instrumental version. It is.
Oh, yeah.
No, somebody else did the song prior to him in like the 60s or 50s. Oh, no,
isn't it?
That's
maybe a later.
That's him, man. No, he added some stuff in the beginning, I think. This is
Trying to forget
yeah, dude, it's
feelings of love.
Oh yeah.
Feelings.
The chorus, man, it's just when he gets into it, it's just like, man, it's so funny you're playing this.
Rolling down on my face.
I guess, Isaac, when you think about it, I think I've been emo since 3 years old.
For sure. Me too, man. Me too.
I just, you know,
not by choice.
I got right here when he kicks into it, it's like, it's so good, dude. Right here, dude.
For all my life, I'll feel it.
Oh, so good, dude, you know?
I wish I never met you, girl. You never come this way.
I guess I was a bit emo and romantic in some ways.
Exactly. For sure. Can't deny it.
Yeah.
Nice. Hey man, I get it. I grew up on Motown and doo-wop, and so that's all I heard.
It's funny
Lowrider
because
oldies and
oh yeah,
love.
my
I
parents.
grew up on love songs, and
My parents were, I was born in 72. So my parents were younger when they had, I think I was like, they were 24, 25, something like that. And my parents, although none of them played an instrument, there was always music on at my house. My
Yep,
parents were
same.
super into going to they would go disco dancing. And they did everything. I mean, disco was a huge part of my life as far as growing up. But you know, my parents got divorced, but it would go visit my dad, and music was huge in his life. I mean, my dad listened to Aldo Nova, Billy Idol. I mean, a lot of stuff that I gravitated towards. I mean, he had this rock was huge, but he also got into country. And then obviously one of the biggest things in my life that I remember vividly for music was mariachi, right? I mean, my family, majority of them come from Mexico. We relocated here and stuff like that and whatnot. And so, and all these, Mexican love songs and all the different things that come with it, Vicente Fernandez and all that stuff, which it's just like, as a kid, besides Budweiser, that's what you saw. That's what you heard. A Budweiser beer and freaking mariachi. So it was like, it was hand in hand, but I was fortunate in the sense that even though my dad didn't play, and my mom didn't play, it was always on. It was a huge aspect of my life. My sisters played. My sisters were musically inclined in a big way. They both played piano. My little sister played piano for many years. Probably she could have gone to Berklee School of Music and stuff. Wow. And she was really, really good. Never wanted to go that direction. For whatever reason, decided to try to get a business degree or whatever. But a lot of it had to do with the fact that it was always on around us. My parents. The one thing is they love to dance, man. Like that was the biggest thing. I feel like I'm born with two right feet, but I mean, I definitely, if it's the moment's right, I will do it. But there was no music that my parents were afraid of. Although I told you, right, Kiss was a huge, important part for me because it was scary. And I was just finished talking with my son about how that is what really was the bigger, like, oh my God, look at the makeup and shit like that, But they never bought me a Kiss record, which was funny because I had a Kiss lunch pill and I had a freaking Gene Simmons doll, but they would not buy me the record because I don't, but I loved Alive. That was just like the fucking raddest. And then eventually, again, I think that unfortunately for my parents, well, unfortunately, just in general, right? They got divorced and there was obviously tension and stuff. And so I was able to leverage what I wanted, for my dad to piss off my mom in some way, or, AC/DC, or I'd hide shit and stuff like that. But dude, it's kind of funny. So Feelings was the one, man. That was a kickoff. That was the jam, dude.
That was the jam. All right. Next you picked Minor Threat, Filler. Let's go.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. It's just. Yeah, it's just. Oh man, it's just so.
Attitude.
I still listen to it today, so it doesn't shock me in any kind of way.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the tones. Jeff Nelson, how fast he's playing, and obviously Ian's vocals and what he's saying, man. At a time when, there was violence in my life as a kid and stuff, unfortunately, and you listen to what he's saying, and you could be a different person, man. And I think again, when I look at getting into, in that 7th, 8th, 9th grade, getting into the music, it was hard because I wanted to either pick 7 Seconds or Minor Threat, but because I love 7 Seconds to death as well too. Those were the two bands that kind of got me into hard, or at least straight edge hardcore and stuff, right? Or a positive outlook to hardcore, because punk was so nihilistic. Filler was just, hearing it come on, it was just like my blood moved differently. I felt differently.
Yeah.
But still, when you listen to what Ian's saying, it's like, man, it just, we just got to be fucking cool.
I have an interesting perspective. Like I said earlier, like I always felt like I was the outsider hanging around you guys, all of you guys. I'm just, and that's cool. But I remember, hanging out with Dwayne, and then Jason showed us Bad Brains.
Oh yeah.
And as soon as I heard Bad Brains, I was like, I fucking love that. I was like, I listening to everything else I heard. I didn't really listen to anything really other than popular like stuff. Are you there? Did you cut out? Okay, yeah, like I was saying, so I kind of felt like an outsider, but when I heard Bad Brains, like I connected with big time because, well, the first album I heard from Bad Brains was Quickness because of Jason. Jason was showing us, me and Dwayne at the time, Bad Brains. And I was like, oh shit, that shit's heavy, very rhythmic, but then the reggae stuff, and I love reggae music. Like I've always loved reggae, like forever. I don't know where it came from in my life, but for some reason I think it's because a lot of reggae comes from R&B and shit. I think I just identified with it heavy. And then once I really started paying attention to them, Dr. No, I was just like, this guy is fucking insane. Like he would just shred, and just his tone was sick, and he was just so clean with his shit, and it was crazy. So that's why I took on the name Dr. I, because he was Dr. No. I was like, he's Dr. No, K-N-O-W, and it's like he was the brains, he was the brains,
So it's funny because I mentioned to you that it was so hard to kind of pick, right? I mean, for me, I think it was, I used Minor Threat just because they were, it was so influential for me.
Yeah.
It really was the change that I needed in my life. I was definitely going down a different path when it came to punk. And then I realized, well, shit, this is something that I wanted in my life, as far as I'd seen my family destroyed by alcohol and stuff like that. So but the reality is that it's all about the Bad Brains, man.
Yeah, the Bad Brains kind of started all of it, basically, right?
Dude, I loved, I mean, because again, the bigger thing for me was that all of a sudden, here you had four black dudes playing punk, and it was like, oh, okay, wait a minute, now I'm really identifying, right? Not that I was saying that I couldn't identify with these other bands.
No, I get it.
It was so much more eclectic at the point, and it was so much more. And then to your point, their musicality was different with reggae songs, and then like, Dr. No was like the freaking Eddie Van Halen of punk. I mean, it was just,
exactly.
It was insane, right?
Yeah.
So to that point, man, I really I love. I've seen the Bad Brains many times, and I'm not afraid to say how much I love them, right? I mean, it's unfortunate that we all get older and things change, and they're not making records right now and stuff. But even the last stuff that they did, maybe I don't know how long that one was, maybe 10 years ago or something, was so ill. I do, and I guess they also had, obviously, where do we get PMA from? It's from HR, right? Positive mental attitude, man, all the way, So yeah, man, I feel you when it comes to the Bad Brains, because that is, I knew it was the Bad Brains. Obviously, were so influential to a lot of my other friends, right? Tim and Sergio and Baruch, and those guys and stuff like that. And it was just rad, with that, all of us, the Bad Brains resonated pretty intensely. So.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Okay, so the third song you picked is Pleasure Pill. Now I know who they are, so that's even better. Fuck yeah, respect to that. So this is Say What You Want. Let's go. Dude, this is crazy. This is fucking sick. I want to talk to your kids now, bro.
Yeah.
I will talk to them.
The pill, baby.
Bro, this shit's dope, bro. This is crazy. Different. That's cool, man. That's different.
You know, it's. I think for me, you know, obviously it probably sounds like a shameless plug for my kids and stuff,
No,
but
not at all.
you know, I think the reality is that I'm so hypercritical of them, right? When it comes to because I'm hypercritical of music in general. It's
Sure.
so important in my life, but the reality is that there's a whole other side to me musically than just you know hardcore or heavy music and stuff like that. I mean, I my wife and I both. Man, I heard the Smiths back in probably 1987 or 86, and it was just that important in my life. You know, Britpop, what they call
Yeah.
Britpop, became a huge component as well. Bands like the Smiths, Morrissey,
Yeah.
and then even bands like The Cure. You know, a lot of that stuff,
Sure.
that whole 91X alternative rock era.
Yeah.
You know, New Order, and I'm no different than a lot of other quote unquote hardcore guys that have those types of influence. But you know, it's cool because my kids I have videos of Ethan singing along with Gorilla Biscuits and Civ, you
Nice.
know, to Gorilla Biscuits and stuff like that. And Jonah, you know, has been touring since he was 15 in punk bands and stuff like that.
Wow.
They did the whole thing, and I this is where the evolution has come, right? A lot of us
Interesting.
get into punk and hardcore, and it kind of goes in a different direction, and they have, and I think that I don't need to say that my kids have a cool band as far as their music and stuff because it is. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many people that are starting to get into it and stuff,
I think
and again,
it caught me as Nine Inch Nails vibes right there, dude. I totally heard Nine
yeah.
Inch Nails right there. I was like, dude, that's
You know, it's
sick.
funny because I mean, Jonah, that stuff was all recorded on GarageBand with
Yeah.
program drums and different things. But his aesthetic of using so many different instruments and different things and
Yeah.
different vibes. I mean, his musical palette, it's huge, right? And
That's
and
cool.
it's funny because he's getting into other different sounds and stuff now. But I think that the biggest thing is that it's it's it is today, right? Like this is
Yeah.
what's happening, man, right?
Yeah.
You know, this is some of the stuff that people are listening to and people are getting into. I love the fact that you listen to their band today, it's guitar driven, which
Yeah.
there's not a lot of that. You know, it's we've lost that whole we have not lost it.
Yeah.
It's still there, but they're starting to they want to bring that back in their sound overall, and I think that that's like it's calling me and others my age, right?
Yeah.
You know, when it comes to, but I also think it's calling people their age and younger as well too. It's drawing them to a different vibe and stuff, which is
Yeah.
great. I
It's undeniable, I mean, for all of us, whether younger or older, it's those elements that are undeniable that we latch onto. We've always done it. We've
absolutely,
done it the whole time,
yeah,
and they're doing it too, so the influence plays one part, but then when they're actually creating the sound, and even if it sounds like something you weren't expecting, it's calling, it's undeniable,
it's funny because we don't, I don't collaborate with my sons. Like
Sure.
they have their own musical journey, and I've got mine. I mean,
For
obviously,
sure.
we talked about, I guess, operational things like, you know, this is how I tune my guitar or string my guitar. This
Right.
is what, this is what the preamp is doing. I mean, there's things that we talk about
Sure.
that are like the meat and potatoes, I guess, quote unquote, of music. But as far as the musical identity and what they're doing, there's no influence from me or my wife or other than the influences that they choose and stuff, which is great.
Yeah.
Not that I would ever do that because I'm not out to start my own boy band or something,
Sure.
but
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 you still want to be a part of it. So you're like, are you sure?
well, it's hard because it is hard sometimes because on the flip side, my daughter, collegiate athlete, played softball in
Yeah.
college, this and that. I put music aside for quite some time. After the main bands, after Impel and Kill Holiday and stuff,
Yeah.
I did play in a band called Adult Crash with Tim, kind of a punker hardcore band,
Sure.
a la SSD and stuff like that, or kind of more mid '80s hardcore. But a lot of my time was spent with my kids, right, on
Yeah.
a baseball field or softball. My kids did all that stuff. We did
Yeah.
all the things that I could never afford to do as a kid, and for her, it gravitated towards her, and she was able to do that and stuff like that, and kind of go from there. But the reality is that with when you look at what musically their journeys have been, for both the boys, it's just cool to know. I mean, it's hard because
Yeah.
I don't want to be this helicopter parent they call, overseeing their music and stuff, or being, like, it's not it's not a soccer club or a softball club
Right.
or a baseball club or a baseball team. This is fucking rock and roll, dude, and
Yeah.
it's dangerous, right? And it has to be dangerous. I think, to me, my wife and I will go see them every once in a great while, but I also want to let them create their space so they can be who they want to be
Sure.
amongst their friends, right? Not that my kids ever felt that they needed to impress us or act differently or anything like that, but I definitely want them to be what they want this band to be. And
Exactly.
honestly, for me,
On their terms. On their terms.
absolutely, unfortunately for me, my other than the fact that, like, my family took a weird turn and stuff, and my mom
Sure.
has never taken him. I was kind of had to hide myself as far as playing music because my mom really did. Although if I would have stayed and done things traditionally with taking lessons and all stuff, it'd probably be a different story. But because I told you my sisters they did take piano, or really
Hmm.
good pianists and stuff. It wasn't encouraged, right? Being in a band was like
Yeah.
not a good thing, just like
Sure. It's a
skateboarding, right?
hobby.
It was,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a nice hobby. And it's like, no, it's not a hobby.
Yeah,
It's
it was.
life.
If anything, it was a detractor, right? Because
Yeah,
I
I
because I
identify with
I
that for
should be
sure. Yeah.
working,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
or going to
Same.
college or something like that.
Hmm.
So with
Same.
them, it was never. I mean, we never viewed it like that. It was just as important as the athletic teams that they were on, and we
Yeah.
emphasized it. Although we also understood that this was art.
Yeah.
Don't
It's
get me wrong.
expression. It's expression. All of it. It's all
Yes.
expression. Even sports is expression. It really
Absolutely,
is.
man. I mean, you
Yeah.
tell me that Messi isn't an artist, and I'll laugh at you, right? Because I mean,
Yeah.
Lionel Messi is. We're watching one of the greatest soccer players to ever play the sport, right? And
Yeah.
it's a thing of beauty.
Yeah.
But the reality too is that we encouraged it, but also understood that there had to be this element that we let them find out and do things more. Versus athletics, at a certain point, right? When you're
Yeah.
attacking a pitch or a swing or whatever
Yeah.
it may be, there's a lot of different components that go into building the swing, and there's things that go into building music, or doing music, but there really isn't at the same time. Like, even their
Exactly.
band, or Jonah's musical stylings have evolved over the course of time.
Yeah.
So they had to find that. We couldn't, and I say we because my wife has played such an important role in all of our lives. I mean,
Yeah.
shit, I don't have. What's funny, because we were talking about it last night, or actually, I don't have what I've got today without Impel. Right,
For
my
sure.
wife and I met because of the band. She was Little Joe's friend, and here we are, 30 some years later, right?
Yeah.
And but you know, I don't do this without her encouragement to continue to keep going down this path, and,
Right.
and letting find my continue to find my creativity and all this kind of stuff. But the same concept with our kids, right? We let them find their ways. I mean,
Yeah.
my wife let my son go on tour at 15 with because I was like, he's going, and it had to be kind of even though she saw me go on tours, Now it's our son,
That's crazy.
and
At
he's going
15,
with like a
that's so
21.
crazy.
Yeah, he's going like with a 21-year-old, right? And it's like, well, wait a minute, this is kind of freaking weird and stuff.
Sure.
But those kids that he went out with are some of his best friends still to this day, and we
Yeah.
love those guys to death. They're really good guys. But it was having to have the confidence and understanding that, like, hey, this is what we do. Like, if
Yeah.
you're gonna do this, if the opportunity presents itself, you got to go on the road. I mean, they have been going on the road lately and doing more things. Obviously, they're older today; they're adults, and
Sure.
so it's less taxing in that sense. Um, but yeah, man, I had to put them down. Not a shameless plug,
No.
just kind of in awe of
Proud,
what they're
yeah.
doing.
A
Yeah,
proud
absolutely.
daddy. Hey, there's nothing wrong with being a proud daddy, man. Trust me.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
feel it.
you know,
I
and
feel it
hopefully,
every day, man.
hopefully your kid takes up that same path of
She's already
music and
on it, dude.
stuff.
She's already on it.
Yeah,
It's
that's
crazy.
so dope. That's great, so.
All right, well, let's get into your music. Let's go. All right. So you told me to pick, obviously we're gonna play Hingada because that's what you're doing now, but I have to play Impel, only because of the way I feel about it, and
Sure.
that's our connection in a way, and and omnidirectional to me, the track omnidirectional. Like I remember that time where you guys were recording the album, and I remember all of it. I really do. And because and I even have the vinyl, the blue vinyl of it's the single. It's got 3 songs on
Ride
it,
the
right?
Pain.
Ride the Pain.
Yeah,
Yeah, I have it. I have the record on my wall right now.
yeah.
It's funny. I dug it up. I moved recently, and it just was there, and I was like, oh shit, okay, I still have this. All right, so I still have it, and as much as I love that album, like once you guys did Omnidirectional, I was like, oh, okay, this is next level. Like, and that song every time I put it on just gets me so hype. I love the whole album, but Omnidirect just starts the way you want it to start. The way you were saying, your friend from Amenity playing that bass line, like it just,
Yeah,
it's that
Sergio, yeah.
opening, just this is what you're in for, and
Yeah,
boom, and it hits,
yeah.
So let's go, omnidirectional. Even hearing you guys play last night, I was like, God damn it, let's go. Fucking so heavy.
Yeah. I'm saying, oh my God.
And then you gotta have the breakdown, bro. Yeah, I mean that song is just crazy, man. I can't get over
nuts.
that.
I was laughing right now because fuck, I don't have no idea how I scream that song, man. I mean, I'll tell you, I obviously I love Bon Scott, Brian Johnson,
Yeah.
Dave Grohl. the Foo Fighters, right? That color and shape record when they came out with Monkey Wrench, and that middle part. You know, Dave's screaming voice. I mean, obviously, Scream was a huge band. I loved Scream back in the day especially when he played drums on Scream. That song Mardi Gras is so fucking ill, and then obviously his Nirvana shit. But when he screams, like, those were like the influences of like what I wanted to scream like. But then I listened to it, I'm like, fuck, I could take a breath once in a while, right? Like, I mean, if you notice towards the end of the song, I'm fucking dying. Like, my voice is starting to lose any sort of low end or anything it has.
Was it all one take? Did you do it in one take?
I think it was 2 takes, if I'm not mistaken. But still, I was just like, I'm determined to get this thing done. But to me, like, that's the way the song felt vocally, right? I mean,
very brutal,
Jason, all the credit to Jason, because he's the one that came up with most of the riffs and stuff. And I know we all put the song together. And I'm a huge, my hardcore background, really. I love mosh parts. Like, that's just like my.
That's that breakdown, man.
The breakdowns are just. I'm not necessarily into all the chaos or karate kicks or the gnarliness that comes with mosh parts, but I love mosh parts, right? You know, and so that whole mosh part in the middle, that was omnidirectional. Really, at the end of the day, I think it was. My favorite song is Cleanse, just because the feel and the way I remember writing that song and the riffs and stuff, and then the way we put it together. And it really has just cool kind of call response action when it comes to the song. And I do change up my voice a bit and stuff. You know, that was one of the things that Omni, I tried to. I wasn't a singer. I was a guitar player, kind of being forced to sing again, right? You know, but I gave it my best, and I wanted to do variations. But at the end of it, Omni D defines Impel, man. Like, that's our defining moment of a song.
I agree.
No doubt about it, man. You know.
That's crazy. And I love that I was there to witness it in a way. Like, it was, that's why I have such respect for you guys. It's crazy, you know? And like I said, I wasn't a part of the scene or any of that shit, but I was there to witness that. And I appreciate that. It's crazy. Like, I was like, fuck yeah, dude. Like, do you know about it? Yeah, I do, actually. And yeah, I saw some shit, you know? It's like, that's all I could say about it. I can't say that I was there from the beginning, bro. I was at all the shows. Nah, but I saw some shit, you know, and I appreciate.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, man. Because again, to us, we weren't necessarily looking to affect our friends. We were just 4 guys that just realized. I mean, I got to tell you, Isaac, our best shows with Impel were in our studio, just the 4 of us, right? Like, writing these songs and letting these songs feel and man, we weren't out to be popular. We weren't out to do anything but just write stuff that we wanted to hear, and we wanted to let so much of our lives out. Each individual had their own sets of problems and frustrations in life and stuff. And, you know, at the end of the day, you know, we talked about a revolving door with Impel for guitar players, but at the end of the day, the guitarist it was Jason Manuel all the way, man. Like, his imprint is on omnidirectional. He's written so many of the songs and had influence in the songs and different things that he did. But that era of the band was the most important era of the band at the end of the day. But that song, I think, is the song that defines us, man. 100%.
Nice. Respect to that. All right. So now I want to play Hingada. This is the newest new. You like I said, you told me to pick, so I picked one, but then I asked you, is there one you want me to play? And you chose Hyphenated, so I'm gonna play that one first.
Jay's crazy, man.
Yeah, exactly.
He's fucking insane when it comes to the guitar shit that he's doing. It's rad.
So why did you pick that song?
You know, it's really like
because you kind of left
song,
it up to me, and then you were like, then I asked you, so I want to know why you picked that song.
You know, it's funny. I think that a song like Localizer is probably more indicative of the direction which Hingada is going to be going in.
Sure.
Um, so Disappear is another one that's really a really cool song. I like a lot
Yeah.
because it just seems to be more eclectic in what we're doing and stuff. You know, this band, June and I are kind of sharing the vocal duties.
Yeah.
We're trying to do something different as far as what all of us have done in the past and stuff.
Yeah.
We're actually, Jay's in the band. June and I have a lot of history, but Jay's in the band now and Sal's in the band. We've done the guys we necessarily haven't really played with, although Jay did tour Europe with Impel for 5 weeks and stuff. But yeah, it's just I think hyphenated. I mean, kind of it was like it's where the band kind of started, but it's exciting to see what we're going to be able to do next, right? We really want to try to keep pushing the envelope of, I guess, our version of heavy music per se. I mean,
sure.
It's funny because you get, June and I playing together, and people want to think of labeling it, as this Impel and stuff. No, it's not at all.
No,
I think it's a lot different than what we've done
there's
with
elements.
other bands.
There's elements of, I'm sure, everything you've done. Of course, why wouldn't there
Sure.
be? Yeah.
Well, I think that, and thank you for saying that. I mean, I definitely feel like it's kind of a nice thing to hear because I mean, no matter what I do, especially vocally, it's kind of tough because you're gonna hear my voice, right? But
sure.
But the reality is that it's something different that we love. It's pretty casual.
Yeah.
It's we don't put a lot of pressure on ourselves. We love to jam. We hang out. We do our thing, and
Yeah.
we may play a couple shows in San Diego here and then. I mean, we don't really have a lot of desire to have to go do this or go do that.
Right.
I mean, we're driven. We want to write good music and we do want to play shows. But again, we've all got real lives as far as jobs and shit like that, and kids and stuff like that for some of them, and other bands. Sal is he's got a lot of stuff going on musically. He's got the label. Again, he's also has a job and a family and stuff as well too. So it's fun. There's no end date to this. It's just, hey, let's rock. And I know it's funny because
keep the train going.
That's right. Well, we took about a month and a half, almost 2 months with this Impel shows and stuff for practicing and stuff. And
sure.
I just finished talking to Sal last night. I'm like, hey, it's time to get, unfortunately I broke my wrist. And so I'm finally getting over that. But now that we're, Impel's kind of put, done and stuff like that. And
okay. So that was going to ask, is that why you didn't play guitar last night?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it kind of worked out.
I was like, whoa, that's weird. Oscar's not playing guitar. Okay.
I know. Yeah.
I was like, okay.
I broke my wrist 2 weeks before the Gilman show.
Okay.
And so Jay, Impel has to be a 2-guitar band, right? So Jay absolutely was like stoked to do it. And so, we're not putting an end date on Impel or saying that was it. That's, it's over and stuff, whatever, no more. If something happens next year, whenever, this and that, we would be open, but we're going to do it as a 5-piece going forward. Because I love Jay so much. He's such a good dude. We all love him a lot, and he's been he's such a rad guitar player, and it just felt good. Like we all enjoyed ourselves. I got to tell you, I know you love Omnidirectional, but we were we were practicing that song before I broke my wrist, and I'm like, how the hell am I going to do this? Right? It's like, dude, so much faster than anything we're playing today.
Yeah.
I haven't played that song in
Hell yeah.
eons, and
Yes, sure.
and then it's like, how the hell do I scream this shit? Like, oh my
Yeah.
god, this is gonna be insane, right?
Yeah.
But I guess in some way for me, the breaking my wrist was a blessing, but it really was, because it got a chance to bring Jay in, and
Yeah.
he enjoyed himself, and like I said, he's a very dear friend of all of ours and
Yeah.
stuff. So it just works, and it feels good, and so we're like, fuck it, let's roll this way.
But you're
So
playing guitar and singing in Hingada, right?
I do.
Okay.
That'll
Yeah.
stay a 4-piece.
For sure.
I have to sing and play in that, because
Cool.
I creatively, it's
Yeah.
it's a part of me. But
Nice.
realistically, it's just more that I think it kind of fits and stuff what we're doing. It's kind of cool, because with Hingada, June has really stepped up and really been writing some good stuff, man. I mean,
Dope.
it really, you would want to think that, like, oh, I'm in the band, so I'm writing everything. I'm not. I mean, it's really kind of a nice pace where
Yeah.
Sal's coming up with a lot of creative stuff, as far as new stuff that we're working on, and
Yeah.
just different takes or trying different stuff. And
Yeah.
obviously, you hear Jay's kind of crazy guitar playing, and that's the
Yeah.
thing is, we want to bring some unconventionality, if
Yeah.
that's even such a
Some
word.
some freshness,
Yeah.
freshness. Yeah. No, I totally get that. Why not?
Yeah.
We're only getting older, so why regress? Why not progress?
Absolutely, man. I think for us, the difference today, besides the age, is the wisdom, man. Right? I think
Right.
that although I took a pretty big chunk of time from playing, I feel like I've re-emphasized it, and obviously, like most, COVID gave a lot of us a chance to kind of recapture
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
musicality and stuff, and I was
Same.
able
Yeah.
to get back in the swing of it, and I've always written. Don't get me wrong; it's not like I completely stopped playing guitar, but there would be months that I wouldn't pick up an instrument and stuff, because I was so busy with life,
Yep.
and so
Yep.
it was great to kind of be able to revisit some of that, and then once COVID hit, to even get more in depth with it, and then and here I am, man. I've got
Nice.
two bands now. It's like crazy shit. I don't know how I do it stuff.
You're like, I'm doing this again?
Yeah.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, so I picked Bodied. And the main reason I picked it is, to me, it was the heaviest song on the album.
Yeah.
And I'm always aiming at heavy forever. That's just me. So I'm gonna play this one. This is Bodied, Hingada. Let's go. That's awesome, man. It was funny because for some reason the first thought I got was Smashing Pumpkins in a way. I don't know why. I kind of felt that a little bit, but then kind of some Quicksand, especially with the way he's playing his guitar, like those high, you know, squealy
Yeah.
type shit, like some Tom Capone shit. I was kind of like, that's it. But I always gravitate towards the heavier. Like when I do my playlist, I do kind of DJ style playlists that accompany, you know, the interviews. Everything I always tend to gravitate towards is the heavy, you know. It's like,
Yeah. Well,
so
it's funny, man, because there's no doubt that you know, for me, it's funny because obviously I remember hearing Quicksand. My Amenity had just come back from tour in like '89 or something from the East Coast with
yeah,
Verbal Assault, and we were in Ron Garsh is one of our buddies. He used to sing for a band called Outward, and Sergio had brought him back. He was the bass player in Amenity. He brought back the Quicksand tape, and we were sitting in Ron Garsh's car, and it was me, him, and Josh Mosh in the back, and he puts it on. It was a 7-inch, and it's like, holy fuck, dude! Like, oh my god, it
what is
just changed
going
our
on?
lives,
Yeah,
right? You
for
know.
sure.
And of course, you know, obviously, I can't go without saying that, you know, Quicksand, Orange 9mm, those bands were just so
Yeah,
influential to me,
yeah,
as far as finding my own, you know, musical identity and stuff. And what again, when we talked about what is it that sparked you or kept that flame kind of burning and stuff, and it was no doubt that the New York post-hardcore scene of that era was just too influential to me. Obviously,
yeah,
you know, adding other, you know, obviously we're Pumpkinheads in a big way. Love the Smashing Pumpkins and all that kind of stuff. Huge James Addiction guy, but just, you know, really trying to incorporate stuff, and then even like, you know, writing songs now where we're putting solos in this. We're writing,
yeah.
you know, 8 bars for a solo and stuff. And as you can see, Jay's trying to do different things and just kind of, you know, I don't know if we'll ever get a Warren DeMartini solo out of Jay or myself, but I think that we still are in love with the idea of noise and tone
Yeah.
and trying to create different soundscapes of the whole process and stuff. But then we're also into, you know, songs like, you know, So Disappear and Localizer, which are a little more stripped down, a little more heavy at times, but as far as in a different way, maybe not because we're fucking dropping it, you know,
Right.
that hard or
Right.
anything, but just in its own way and stuff,
Sure.
and then vocally trying to do something different. But yeah, I think at this stage of the game, we're so influenced musically that it just we're pulling from wherever we can as
Yeah.
far as what we think feels good and stuff. So
And
it's
I
cool.
respect the fact that, you know, because I see it in myself as well, is that in our older age, we're still open to experimentation, you know, and it's
Yeah.
like that's to me, that's the breath. That's the life-giving breath that I keep saying, and I've been saying it more. I'm like, music is infinite, you know, like we'll die out before music ever dies out. There is no death to music. Music is the pulse.
Well,
It's
more importantly, the thing is the concept. At least this is the way I think is that um, it's it's the only way to immortalize yourself. Like everything that
sure.
we've been putting on the cosmos now digitally, you will live forever as a musician, right? As when you
Yeah,
put something out there, it'll never go away. So to me, not that I'm worried about. Obviously, I don't want to die like anybody else, but I
sure.
don't fear this kind of stuff, whatever. And I do know that there's an expiration date on all of us. But
Sure.
when you start putting stuff out in the cosmos the way we have,
Yeah.
music will live on forever. It's the only kind of way to immortalize yourself, man. You
Yeah.
know, and it's so not that that's what I was looking to do, but when you think about it, man, it's going to keep going. You know, and so
Yeah.
you get times where things become resurgence of this or that
Sure.
or different eras of music that come around. But at the end of the day, about it's all about the fact that it will continue. I mean, think of some of the I'm a huge, you know, I'm a huge Beatles fan, and so for me, it's like those songs still ring so true,
Yeah.
and some of them were written in 1964 and stuff, man. Right? It's like holy
Exactly.
shit, you know,
Yeah, they still
it's
ring
fucking
heavy. They're
yeah,
still true. Yeah, that's
yeah,
crazy. So
so
crazy.
fucking nuts, yeah.
Right on, man. Well, thank you. I appreciate your time. This was awesome. You know, I feel like it was like a long time coming for some reason, and I just, like I said, you guys had heavy influence on me in my own way, like, you know, and I appreciate it, and I still love what I hear. And thank you, man. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Isaac, man. I really got to tell you, this has been really, really cool. You're my first podcast ever. I
Dope.
haven't had a chance to do many of these, but it was a lot of fun, and thank you for giving me the platform to be able to kind of express myself, to talk a little bit about what made a lot of this stuff. Again, I told you earlier, man, I love to jam, right? So I don't make music by myself, right? I've always made it with my friends, and obviously there's other stories that can come from all this stuff, but I do appreciate you kind of let me give me the time to kind of express all, let people know, those at least that are interested in, what Chula Vista, the hardcore scene down here, and just with some of the people that, what it's all about, man, what it is all about here, so
well, thank you,
man.
brother, for sure. And much love and respect to anyone out there listening, anyone paying attention.